Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about even more Nintendo Switch 2 leaks, which may be real, which may be fake. We don't know yet because Nintendo has not announced this console or not revealed the console yet. Anyways, here is the latest that has a lot of people talking. 3 models at launch, Gray, White, and Mario Kart 9. January 2025 reveal, Mario Kart 9 launch title, which kind of makes sense because it's one of the models. Magnetic Joy-Cons Hall Effect sticks, curved dock, LCD screen, and larger buttons. And game carts same as Switch 1. Now this LCD screen bit has a lot of people talking, and that's for 2 main reasons here. One is the curved dock and the LCD screen showcasing stuff like the weather, the temperature, and the battery charge, as well as a character bouncing around. This to me kind of makes sense based on the fact that the Alarmo exists, and this is kind of like an Alarmo. And the second thing about the LCD is the fact that it's an LCD. A lot of people would want it to be an OLED. I can absolutely see Nintendo using an LCD instead of an OLED to keep the console prices down. It would be a very Nintendo thing to do. Anyways, here, these are just rumors, and none of this is confirmed, and in fact, based on some of these images, I have my serious doubts. I mean, all you've got to do is zoom into these images, and you can see stuff doesn't really add up here. This person flat out says Photoshop and showcases that this C button, or whatever button this is meant to be, is clearly Photoshopped on. And even the edges of the console are, well, they're not really good. So I would say don't believe everything you see here. Some stuff may be rooted in truth, and a lot of stuff may be fake. We'll have to wait and see when Nintendo actually announces the console here and shows everyone what it can do and what it is. I'm assuming some of this stuff will apply to the new Switch, but I don't think it's going to be a one-for-one example. Again, I could be wrong here, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Right now, I'm taking everything with massive grains of salt. And continuing to speak about Nintendo, next up, we're talking about Nintendo versus Every Game Guru. Now, we talked about this lawsuit a while back. I mean, it is a very big and very serious lawsuit. And Every Game Guru seems to be trying to dodge this lawsuit as much as possible. Now, to refresh your memory, I would say this lawsuit is pretty serious for a number of different reasons, and I think we've covered those reasons in previous videos. Anyways, here, Every Game Guru was streaming Nintendo Switch games via emulation before those Switch games were released, and was basically taunting Nintendo to come after him, and well, Nintendo did. And based on my understanding and interpretation of the court case, it appears that Nintendo is not solely going after this person for streaming pirated games. It also appears that Nintendo is trying to use this court case to draw a line in the sand for emulation moving forward. Basically, any emulators that circumvent technological protection measures are illegal. Now, my interpretation of this could be incorrect, but based on what I'm seeing here, if Nintendo wins this lawsuit in court, it could change the shape of emulation moving forward, with being all emulators that circumvent TPMs being illegal. Again, I could be wrong here, but based on my understanding of the entire lawsuit, and this lawsuit, in my opinion, would kill emulation moving forward, or at least significantly dampen it or slow it down. I would say basically any system from the Nintendo Switch onward would be impacted in terms of emulation. It would be almost a no-fly zone. We'll have to wait and see here, but that's how I interpret it. And again, I could be wrong here, but my guess is that Every Game Guru has a very slim chance, if any, to win. One, because Nintendo has a lot of financial resources. I'm assuming they could drag this court case out and, well, win based on finances alone. Or number 2 here, the fact that the evidence is so strong that, well, Every Game Guru would have trouble building a very strong case to prove Nintendo wrong. Based on this article, it seems that my guesses may be true here in terms of Every Game Guru not thinking they can win this lawsuit, because it seems that Nintendo has tried 5 times to serve Every Game Guru the lawsuit, and they haven't been able to. Like everything I talk about, links are in the description below right at the bottom, and I do recommend checking out this article if you're interested in learning more about the entire situation I'm talking about here. Anyways, the article says Nintendo has now requested further court permission to serve the pressing legal documents to the streamer's close relatives, including his partner, mother, or even grandmother. It seems they're pretty desperate to try to get a hold of this person, or at least move this lawsuit forward, and I can understand why. Just like waiting for the official images of the Switch 2, we're going to have to wait and see on this one to see what happens moving forward. I'm assuming it's just a matter of time here before Nintendo gets a hold of every game guru in some way, shape, or form to advance this lawsuit. And then the real stuff happens. And speaking about real stuff, next up we're talking about fake stuff. And it turns out that there was a GTA 6 leak online a lot of people were talking about. And it turns out that leak was 100% fake. There were a number of different reports talking about this leak, and I think most of them now have been updated stating it is fake. It appears all of this was created from a Discord user by the name of Long Time, who has apologized and says it blew up way bigger than they thought. I mean, understandably so, given the fact that this is GTA 6 we're talking about, and a lot of people are waiting for GTA 6 to happen. But moving on, and next up we're talking about some good news here with the indie sensation, I think we can call it that, Balatro. It turns out that Balatro has sold 3,500,000 units. Additionally, and surprisingly here, someone has found the true ending to Balatro. So Nandre says celebrated the Balatro win at the Game Awards by beating Ante 39, where the required score is so high it crashes the game. The true ending of Balatro has been claimed. Now I can rest. And take a look at the game here. The game is struggling quite a bit. So yeah, here's your true ending to Balatro. This game is currently sitting on Steam with an overwhelmingly positive review score with over 78,000 reviews and is currently 10% off. If you play Balatro, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about the arguably continuously controversial SuperSega FPGA. Now, we've talked about this project in the past where there have been some perceived red flags raised time and time again. Anyways, there's a brand new interview on YouTube called Wildest Interview Ever. SuperSega System Scam. Now again, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. I watched this interview and, well, it was interesting, and I would say it raised even more red flags about the entire system. It just seems that SuperSega can't really do anything without revealing more controversy about the entire project. However, in the interview, Alejandro, the person behind the SuperSega FPGA, or at least the face of it, says here that the people who request money back from this project will get their money back. And if they don't, they're going to get a console. In the video as well, he reveals the FPGA chip. He explains that there's a bunch of ports that don't appear to be working and, well, raises even more questions about the validity of these prototype boards and where they're at in the overall project. And Video Game Esoterica has just put out a video called SuperSega FPGA Scam Goes Software Emulation. Crowdfunding soon, more insanity. And in this, he talks about the validity of that PCB, missing capacitors, and even more. And he also talks about the potential of SuperSega FPGA putting out a mini SuperSega that is just software emulation and just a cheap little software emulation box. I do recommend checking out both videos and letting me know your thoughts about the whole validity of the SuperSega FPGA in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about Black Myth Wukong, and it appears the studio behind Black Myth Wukong is making waves online with some statements they've made about their possible dissatisfaction for not winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Now, I believe these statements were made in Mandarin and then translated into English, so some things may have been lost in translation. But the gist of it here, again, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below. They say the games nominated this year were all excellent, but I really didn't understand the criteria for this year's Game of the Year. I felt like it came here for nothing. Ultimately, we took home the best action game and player's voice, especially winning the player's voice was gratifying. But they are very disappointed they did not win Game of the Year. Alana Pierce seems to confirm that the Black Myth Wukong team was not happy with not winning Game of the Year. She was at the Game Awards, and apparently the Black Myth Wukong team were a few rows behind her, and apparently someone was crying. Someone even asked her if it was celebratory crying, and she said no, it was definitely upset crying. Again, I'm not sure how much was lost in translation, but based on my interpretation, it seems the studio behind Black Myth Wukong was very emotionally invested in the success of their game, and they probably thought it was going to win Game of the Year. I mean, winning player's voice as well as best action game are very good awards for the Game Awards. Not winning Game of the Year, I would say, is not necessarily earth-shattering, but possibly for the studio who put a lot of effort into the game. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I'm assuming that most studios who were nominated for Game of the Year and did not win were probably disappointed in some way, shape, or form. I'm just surprised that they voiced this stuff in public for everyone to see or hear. Again, stuff may have been lost in translation. So let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Do you think Black Myth Wukong should have beat Astrobot for Game of the Year? How do you think Black Myth Wukong did at the Game Awards? Do you think they overperformed, underperformed, or were justified in their awards? And speaking about disappointments, next up we're talking about Sega and Sonic Superstars. And the Sega president has called Sonic Superstars a disappointment. Now, the whole interview with the president of Sega is up on Eurogamer, and again, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below right at the bottom. Anyways, here's the question. When Nintendo puts out a mainline Mario game, it's a big event. One only comes out every 5 years or so. There's always a new theme, but it's still fundamentally Mario. At one point, there were so many Sonic games coming out, it felt like there was no quality control. It just felt like a fiscal obligation. What are you doing to increase the quality level of Sonic games? And here is the answer. That's a very good question. We are trying to do something creative with Sonic Frontiers. With Sonic Superstars, it turned out to be a disappointment in terms of the outcome compared to what we delivered. That is a pretty big statement about the game. In fairness, though, this game does not seem to have been very well reviewed or received. I mean, taking a look here over on Steam, it's got an overall review score of mixed, which in my opinion is not very good, with just over 2,000 reviews, which in my opinion is not a whole lot given the fact that this is supposed to be a AAA game. The game was released back in 2023. I mean, compare that with something like Balatro. This is not a fair comparison, but Balatro has an overwhelmingly positive review score with over 78,000 reviews. Here's a smash hit versus, in my opinion, something that has not been very well received. Interestingly, over on Steam, Sonic Superstars still has de novo anti-tamper on it over a year later. And taking a look at some of the reviews here, and the most recent ones are, the most helpful ones are negative. In fact, here's the most recent review, only putting a positive recommendation because I don't hate the game enough for a negative one. That tells me all I need to know about the game and how people are receiving it. So let me know your thoughts about Sonic Superstars in the comments below. Do you think the president of Sega was right in calling this game a disappointment, or do you believe this game is very good and shouldn't be a disappointment? Next up is a friendly heads up for people excited about Elden Ring Night Rain. It turns out that there's a network test that will be coming in February, and they say registration will start from January 10th. Again, like everything I talk about, link will be in the description below right at the bottom. Now, based on the information here, it does seem it's going to be for both PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, and may involve a lot of players. They say here the network test is a preliminary verification test in which the selected testers play a portion of the game prior to the full game launch. Various technical verifications of online systems will be examined by conducting large-scale network load tests. So I'm very curious what they mean by this and how many people they're going to accept into this testing program. Next up, we're talking about the Linux desktop environment XFCE. And if you like to use this lightweight and snappy desktop environment, and I would say highly popular, you might be excited to know that version 4.20 was just released. So they say here, after almost 2 years of work, we are happy to announce the release of XFCE 4.20. Since XFCE 4.18, a lot of major development happened. Our team added many nice new features, did a gazillion of bug fixes, and did various minor improvements. Finally, all that was released for your pleasure. Now, this is important. The major focus driving this development cycle was the preparation of the codebase to be ready for Wayland. In my opinion, Wayland is inevitable. It's coming and, well, the desktop environments are getting ready for it. Now, XFCE isn't entirely ready for Wayland. They say Wayland support is experimental. So that is worth pointing out, especially if you were excited about the Wayland piece. They will be working on it moving forward and making it better, but at this point in time, it's still experimental. In my opinion, an already good desktop environment just got even better here. It's even more customizable. They have made some minor tweaks and improvements, and I would say this may be worth checking out if you're interested in XFCE. Next up, we're talking about NVidia, and NVidia has been in the news lately for not a good reason here. A lot of people are claiming that the NVidia app reduces performance by a considerable margin. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe this was one of the main talking points online. This person says, yikes, looks like having the NVidia app installed was destroying performance in some of my games, mainly Unreal Engine 5 ones, like Black Myth Wukong and the Talos Principle 2. Uninstalling the NVidia app fixed some horrendous frame time issues and gave me an extra 15% plus of performance. Pfister tested an NVIDIA RTX 4080S with and without the NVIDIA app and noticed a measurable performance loss. So they went from 128 frames per second without the app down to 114. That is a pretty big difference. Additionally, DSO Gaming did some testing with an RTX 4090 and noticed a difference between 4 to 6% overall, so about 3 to 4 frames per second. My gut tells me this will vary from system to system and graphics card to graphics card, but I could be wrong here, and I can completely understand why performance would be better without the app versus with the app. I mean, the app does offer quite a bit and is running in the background. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm generally a minimalist when it comes to this stuff. I don't normally like apps that go along with different stuff. For example, my webcam, I don't like the apps that come along with it. For my microphone, well, there's no app for this microphone, but for the Scarlett Solo that I've got plugged into it, there is definitely an app for that. I don't use the app for that. I just use it plugged into my machine. It works, the drivers are fine, and I'm happy with it. Some people like to take advantage of all of the features and do a whole bunch of different stuff, and that's understandable. But it's also got to be understandable that if you are using an app and using it for different features, it's probably going to affect performance. Now, let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Did you know that the NVIDIA app possibly affects performance? Do you have it installed? Do you use it? I'm just wondering how many people are going to see this and then uninstall the app to try to get the best performance possible. And last up here, we're talking about Gearboy, which is a Game Boy Color emulator written in C++ that runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, BSD, and RetroArch. And Gearboy just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Gearboy version 3.6.0 is the latest release. And I would say this is a big one for this emulator because they've added in Windows ARM64 support. Now, we've seen this from other emulators recently, most recently being RPCS3, and it seems like more and more emulators are adding in ARM64 support. Additionally, here they've improved the audio client. There's now game mode in macOS and even more. Again, like everything I talk about, link is in the description below at the bottom. I believe Gearboy is 100% free and open source. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Now, if you pay attention to my socials, you probably knew that I was winter camping on the weekend. I had initially planned to do a winter camping video, but unfortunately it was just not working out. I was under the weather. I wasn't feeling good. It was everything I could do just to enjoy the weekend and, well, enjoy my time winter camping and stay warm. It was super cold. I went through a ton of wood. Anyways, I did record some footage to use, and I may use it in a future video, maybe even in tomorrow's video. So stay tuned for that one, but let me know your thoughts on anything we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.